Before we get into today's episode, have you seen my new logo? It was designed by Ross Ullman Design. Whether it's branding, logos, printed media, social media, posters, t-shirt designs, feel free to contact him for any of your desired needs. Visit his website to get started. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Okay, welcome back to another episode, and please allow me to welcome my guest today. Nia, how are we doing?
I am wonderful. Disclaimer, I'm going to be very awkward until I
No, we love that.
leave.
Yeah, I mean, awkward is a good term to use right now because, I mean, I'm sure it must feel rather weird 7 years later to be talking about this. Like, I won't expect you to imagine that we would be doing this right now, right? Like, this has to feel kind of weird that you're talking about stuff that almost probably feels like a past life of yours at this point in time. How weird is it now? Like, has it set in yet, or is it not going to set in until probably another 2 weeks when it premieres?
I feel like it's going to set in later. But I was one of those people where 7 years have, transpired since the last time I was on the show. And I had put this chapter behind me and I was very thankful for it. And I had a really wonderful time. And I also had the 7 years I had to grow up and evolve. And like I said to you before, go to therapy and figure out who I was and who I didn't want to be and let go of childish things and all this stuff. Like, I'm thankful for that. But I also was like, okay, I'm done with the challenge. Like, there's no way I would ever go back. And now I'm 33. I'm washed up. I'm old. I have a back. Like, there was going to call me, even if, like, they had no one else. I was just like, there's no way. And so I was at peace with, like, the newcomers that came in and carried the torch and did their thing. And when this happened, initially I said no. Like, I love my career. I'm very mindful of the things that I do now because it was hard for me to get in this industry based on the stuff that I did in my past on TV. And so, I mean, I'll be completely honest. The only reason I did it is because Jordan was on it. And one day he came to my house and he's like, we were just like having like a pool party and grilling out. And I told him I got the call and he said he got the call. And I was shocked because he normally does the main show. And I was like, if you do this, I will do it. But if you don't do it, I won't do it because I don't know any of these people. I don't really have a desire to do this. I'm scared. I'm old. I haven't worked out all summer. Like, why would I be there? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go. So that was essentially my only like motivation to do it and go and know I had a trusted person that I love that would be there with me and had already done this before with me. But yeah, I'm happy that I did it. I am definitely a different person. I mean, people will notice I'm very quiet I'm very quiet. I'm very awkward. I'm very like trying to figure out my groundings and or getting my bearings and whatnot. Because I'm rusty. I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah, I was kind of curious with kind of, you both kind of came onto that at the same time. I was wondering if there was like anybody that maybe influenced you in wanting to come back, you know what I mean? Like, how was maybe this first approach? Like, was it just like a normal standard call like you would get in the past? Maybe were you called for the first 2 seasons, or was like this your lone call?
This was my lone call.
Mm.
And at first I thought it was a joke, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, they want me to come back for this. But one of the producers, after I said no initially, she said, watch the first season and then form your opinion. It's different. It's not the same environment. It's not like a bunch of young people. You're not going to be with like 23-year-olds. It is not the same experience that you had previously. And so I said, okay, I'll watch it. So I went through, watched it. And then at that point, like, Jordan had come over and I was like, okay, this feels like a safe place where I can venture into. And there are a few people in that room that I knew had already gotten the confirmation that we're going, like Wes, who I love, who I did Exes 2 with. So to know he was going to be there was reassuring to me. A few other people, I can't think of names right now, but I was just like, okay, I feel safe. Nehemiah, I hadn't met him, but I had loved him, and he and I connected right before the show. So I felt good. But I mean, I had tweeted, I said, guys, stop asking me. I'm never going back. And that's never say never, ever again. Because like, God has such a crazy sense of humor that he has his own way. So I just, now I'm like, okay, like, I'm open to like all things that are good. And I feel like I'm better to, handle that type of situation now.
Was there any moving parts that needed to be put in place in order to like make this happen? Because obviously the word reality TV and like transitioning onto a show while you have like a career can sometimes be met with like a little bit of a stigma, of course, as you could probably imagine. Was there any conversations that needed to be had in order for that to kind of get off the ground moving?
100%. So when the producers called me and offered me a spot on the show, I said, okay, let me think about it. Number one, I needed to talk to my employers, the people that I work for. I needed to have their blessing, or I was not doing it. It just was like a non-negotiable thing because I had to be tirelessly to get in because of what happened the last few times that I was on in that environment, right?
Mhm.
So once I had their blessing, I was like, okay, well, they're saying that they trust me. I mean, they hired me after knowing the things that I said and did in my past, and they formed an opinion on me based on how they met me. And they're like, listen, you're amazing. We love you. Go for it. Like, we have your back, you know? Um, just don't mention like who you fly for or, any of the
Yeah.
like little things because of NDAs and just professionalism in itself. But just to know that I had the people that I worked for support me, and I didn't know what the response was going to be. But if I had any inclination that they were like, no, I just wasn't going to do it because I love my job. I love my career. I love my life. And I didn't want to do anything that could possibly taint it, especially just to like go back on TV. It's never been an interest of mine just to be on TV or be famous or anything like that.
Mm.
So yeah.
I think that might be a natural segue into this next topic then, because I deal very closely with a lot of cast members that talk about like how exiting the show is very hard for them when kind of exiting off the show and then stepping back into normal life can be like a bit of a culture shock for them. And those are from cast members that continue to do the show. Was it maybe like that for you once you got done, like this is it, I'm not going back to the show? Like, because I know you had that post right around the time of the Oscars, you said that it was hard like meeting people, and then even with employment, like they would turn back to that moment from Real World Portland with your cast members. Obviously, was that like a real thing for you with one, meeting people, and then like trying to get jobs after?
Yeah, because I feel like for me, it was a lot of closed doors and people were not telling me why. So when I was in pursuit of my career in corporate aviation, I had the experience, I had the resume stacked with like luxury hospitality, the culinary background, the look, the personality, the confidence, all these things. And people were interviewing me, but they weren't actually hiring me. But they weren't telling me why. I had to figure that out. And one day a company told me, yeah, we Googled you and this looks problematic and we don't know like what this is. And, I totally understood it. But in the beginning, it was very frustrating because I'm just like, well, what's happening? Is it because I'm black? Like, I didn't know because, there's not a lot of black girls or black people in general in corporate aviation. So I thought, is that it? That can't be it in like modern society. But it really was like what I had done on television looked like a felony. It looked like a porn background. It looked like something that would be judged at the highest level and shunned. And I had to sit in that and understand that and accept accountability because my actions had consequences years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it came out of nowhere. I thought that shit was gone and forgotten and like, I'm friends with all these people now. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be in for this. Like everybody knows or everyone should know that like we've all healed and forgiven each other and made um, an effort to, become better people outside of the show together and separately. And then still this came back. It was almost like going, like I had just decided to become a politician. And then, how like in their world, you have to be squeaky clean to even be considered. So like it was essentially the same exact effect for me. But I'm glad that it happened that way because it forced me to try harder. It forced me to beat on my craft, to be patient. A lot of times in life, I'd gotten jobs because of how I looked or just opportunities or things. And I had developed a level of arrogance and just, oh, yeah, this is, if I want something, it's just going to happen for me like that. I'm thankful that it happened that way. And I'm thankful that even for the bad and the good, bad, and the ugly that happened 7 years ago, it shaped me to make a choice. Like, what type of person do I want to be? Do I want to become? Like, the things I have to let go of, the things I have to stare in the mirror and look at and say, like, this is not gonna give you the most abundant life, and experience if you just continue to live this way and don't hold yourself accountable and make a change.
Right. So there was definitely like some mental health stuff like that people maybe weren't privy to. Like I know like when coming off of shows, it's very, very hard to watch yourself back. I know a lot of cast members go through that.
Yeah.
Like it's normal. Like I mean, I'm obviously not in the same boat, but like I don't watch myself back after these. Like it's a
Yeah.
very natural, instinctive thing for people to not watch themselves back. So I would assume like being in front of the public eye and having to kind of be at the every whim in a sense of like the fans and what they might say or viewpoints had to have been a toll on like your mental health. Then I would have to assume.
Okay. Actually, not. Like,
Really? So you
so
handled it well then.
never been affected, and I'm thankful for. I don't know why I'm this way. I think my father was, when I was a little girl, he's like, sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you, and that stuck with me. So like, the people have said awful things, and some of them justifiably, about me or towards me, on the internet, and I just didn't absorb it and say and accept what they were saying, because I'm like, okay, I'm not these things. Like, yeah, I know I definitely behaved in a way that gave you every right to feel this way or to be disgusted with me or to not like me. I get it. But I just didn't allow the opinions or the words of others to infiltrate my spirit in any way. And I think it really is rooted in my father's, like, you're only something if that someone calls you if you give them permission to make you feel that way. And if you don't, you just reject it and you move on. So that's one of those like superpowers that I'm just so thankful that I have, but it's really rooted in something fundamentally as simple as sticks and stones.
Huh.
And if anything, like the one thing that I've always been worried about is, my professional reputation. My family, like when I was on the Real World and when I was on the challenge, like my mom, she told me like kind of casually that people had found her phone number and were calling the house and sending death threats and things like that to my sisters and bullying my sisters and my friends and saying awful things to them, people that I care about and that I love, that maybe it will affect them in a way that it won't affect me. And that to me was like one of those things where I just thought was super whack that anybody would do. But I mean, people, they have the freedom and liberty to do it now. It doesn't matter because everybody in my world knows like how to handle these things and not to take it personally. But yeah, it's just,
It does kind of seem like the fans do take it more serious than the cast does. It does
yeah,
feel like that, doesn't it? Just
yeah,
does feel like that. It's like they swear they were there.
yeah, yeah. And I love that our show evokes like raw emotion and people are emotionally invested, but I also want them to just give us grace, grace
Exactly.
to be and to evolve and to grow and to learn from our mistakes. We have to look at and stare at the television and say, fuck, like, why did I do that? Or like, I could totally handle the situation differently. I mean, there was a situation even on this last season where Wes walks into the room, like, just because we were rooming together, and he walks in and he says, Nia, it was me and Jordan. We were going at it, and he goes, you're going to regret this. And I remember it was just like a calm, fatherly, nurturing, but take a step back, breathe, collect yourself. You're very emotional. I get it. We're all like on edge. None of us mostly people were married with kids and that they have no like communication to the outside world and everybody's stressed. Calm down. You're fine. Think about what you say and do, before you do it. And I mean, at the same time, I'm very much like a person that I can only be me. I can't be an actress. I can't be calculated in any way. But at the same time, it was just nice to like have somebody just kind of come in and say, I know what you're going through, but
Mm.
let's not slide back to base one.
Yeah, I would definitely say like there was a misconception for a while because I know everybody's obviously aware that you're going to be making your return in a couple weeks, but there
Yeah.
was like a misconception for a while. Everybody was under the impression like you were banned from the show or something. But I did hear that you were contacted the following season for Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know where the whole band thing came from. But yes, they wanted me and my little sister to come. And then I remember I called them and I was like, oh, I have my cousin. And I had this guy pretend to be my cousin. Just like some friend of a friend who like was available for the show because I didn't want to bring my little sister and I knew I wasn't emotionally mature enough to not be like a bulldog, like protective, overly protective person in that environment about her. Because she's so sweet and so innocent. And I was like, if you guys have seen Hurricane Nia before, like if anybody fucks with her, it would be like yellow tape type shit. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
just about my that's my baby. And so I basically told them, no, I'm not bringing her in there because I didn't trust myself. I wasn't mature enough to handle that environment with her and to have faith that she is fine. She's only a year younger than me, like, and she's way more mature than I am. Like, she could have totally dominated and done well, but I was traumatized from my own experiences and my own misbehaviors. That I was like, okay, maybe this is just not conducive for our family, you know.
And is that where it kind of deaded the situation between like you and them as far as doing any more of them?
On me after that, but I did because they called me for Bloodlines. I was like, well, that wouldn't make sense that I would be banned for
Yeah.
X, but rightfully so. I should have been banned for Exes. Should have been probably not even invited for the stuff on the Real World, you know?
Do you know why like they handled your exit the way they did on Battle of the Exes too? Because you kind of typically when people are taken off the show, you'll see TJ walk in and be like, "Due to so and so's actions the night before, we're pulling you off the show." Whereas like they took like more of a maybe strategic approach with kind of quietly moving you
Yeah.
off the show. Do you know why that was?
Yes. And I can only speak for my own observation. I can't speak for like the productions or whatever. But what I think happened is they knew the dynamic between me and Jordan. They knew we had this toxic, like, but also really funny and also rooted in like some sort of like maybe a crush or like sexual frustration or whatever type of relationship where what I did to him was not offensive to him. It was more like there was a scene in the Real World where he and I get into a fight after the whole brawl with me, Johnny, and Averey. And me and him are just like kind of going at it, and we start like ripping each other's clothes off. They never show that. They show a clip of it in um like the shit they should have shown. They
Okay.
they never actually go into it because it was like, what is this? What is happening here? But he and I just had this brotherly sister thing where like it wasn't, neither of us felt violated. We just would go to war, and sometimes like we would do things that were almost like crossing the line. But between he and I, neither of us felt like it was that bad. Like when I did what I did, um, I mean, the things that I said and the words that I used against him, especially using the F word, I mean, that was disgusting. And like, I can't even fathom how like I justified that in any way, especially knowing like all of my friends in the LGBTQ community, how loving and accepting and just natural that is for me to like, I'm not just an advocate, but an ally. So for me to do that and to think that, oh, my excuse is, well, my gay friends use the word, it's okay. No. And so like that to me was inexcusable. The whole me grabbing him or pulling his shorts, that's just, we had already done that on the Real World. You guys just never saw that. Like, I mean, he like ripped my bra off and I like pulled his pants down and we were pushing each other and like cursing each other out. We would do really, really bizarre things to each other when we were fighting. And so in that situation, he didn't ask for me to leave. He told him, he's like, no, let her stay. I want to kick her ass in the final. Like, she doesn't even know what a final is. Like, she's going to die. And she's
Yeah.
bullying Sarah. Like, let her stay and let her get her ass kicked. And because legally, they're like, okay, if he had done this to you and we let him stay, this could be majorly problematic because it still qualifies as sexual harassment and it's a violation. And I totally understood that and supported it. And I respected their decision. And I told the producers that. I said, listen, I didn't even realize I was doing that in the moment because I was just so gone, in a fit of rage and angry and whatever. Um, and I accepted that, and I bowed out. My only concern was, please don't send Leroy home, because he had nothing to do with this, and we have worked our asses off to get to this point, to the final, and he deserves to have a shot at it. And thankfully, they were able to send Theresa, because she technically was his real ex.
Yeah.
Leroy and I never dated, so it was wonderful that they were able to at least run the final together. But wait, so what were you asking me? Like, what was the answer you're looking for? Like,
it was kind of like, well, you answered it, but it was also like kind of what was like explained to you, like when they did it, kind of was exactly what you just said, pretty much.
essentially,
Okay.
yeah. It legally, and not even legally. It's just like, Nia, like, I was a victim of date rape when I was in college,
Yeah.
and so that's a thing that I just totally understand. And so, the way they explained it to me, they said, just flip the mirror. You would want us to swiftly defend you and get him the hell out of here, had it been the other way around. And I understood that immediately. And I said, I'm out of here. I'm sorry that I let you guys down. I'm sorry that I did this. I mean, I was immediately remorseful, in that moment, and ashamed that I had probably, affected the production aspect of the show, because now they had to spend more money to bring people in and, like, scramble and all that stuff. And that part really, I was sad that I had,
Yeah.
caused that.
Yeah. It did kind of seem like, I don't want to say like an unfitting conclusion to like your season, but like that Exes 2 is like one of my favorite seasons, and I know a lot of people agree with me on that. And
Yeah.
to kind of see you like taken out right before the end there was like a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. But I am a fellow Theresa fan in my own right, so seeing her get a crack at it, because
Oh my God.
might I add, her and Wes got pretty screwed on that season too. I'm just gonna put that out there. That was their season.
That was 100% their season. And I mean, but that's how that game is. It's like, people see the strongest competitors and, like, we need to find something, create a narrative, and get them out of here. Because yes, had they been partnered, there is, like, Sarah's not beating Theresa,
Theresa. No.
respectfully. Like, and I say that very respectfully, but, like, she's not beating her. And then Wes is a beast. I mean, like, Jordan and Wes are pretty much like,
Yeah, it's like
the same type of competitor. So I hate that I had to leave in that fashion, but Theresa got cheated, and I'm glad that she got to go in there and at least do the thing. And then also, I saw that final, Mike, I would have died. Like, there's no way. I was not prepared for that. Like, there's no way I would have quit.
But wait, since I am the fellow devil's advocate here, and also you were mentioning about someone not beating someone, I want to bring this point up too as a counterpoint, because I did see when they put the tagline out for the trailer, an all finalist season. You had some keyboard warriors were pointing out the fact that, well, Nia technically didn't make the final. I'm gonna play devil's advocate right now, because you were in the final elimination, and it was gonna be you against Nany in that X battle thing, which is like basically like Nia. I'll let you answer for yourself, but like you were winning that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, back then I was in such good shape, and I had a partner like Leroy that was like, I don't give a f what happens, we're not losing. And I'm fueled by that type of, like, masculine, like, aggressive energy in a, like, athletic, competitive atmosphere. So I would have, you saw how we were in eliminations. It's like, we're just not losing. I'm sorry, I don't care who it is. Like, you're going home. And so yes, I'm confident that I would have won. Nany is not a punk. She is so fierce. It would not have been easy. I can't guarantee that I even would have won. I know he would have beat bananas by any means necessary, but for me, it was like, I would have thoroughly enjoyed being there and doing that. Wait, so what did you say right before that? You were asking, you said
people were talking about
oh, yeah.
the final
So
thing.
funniest thing. So when we showed up for All Stars 3, we did not know what the theme was. So when TJ is kind of giving us, like, a gist of what's going on, he says, you all know what it's like to be in a final. And I'm looking at everybody and I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I have no idea what it's like to be in a final. Matter of fact, I got kicked off right before it, and now this is drawing attention to me, and oh my God.
I bet not a lot of people knew though. Like,
Well, they didn't. They're older, so they hadn't even watched probably the challenge in, like,
yeah.
in the last, like, 6 or 7 years. But I was looking around like, how did I slide here? Like,
we'll work our way back up from back up to X's rather,
yeah,
but I kind of like to do like a little bit of a retrospect now, starting from like the bottom to top. So I get people's like casting stories, and I kind of want to know like what you were up to, like kind of before the real world and what led you to that audition, because typically we see in years past like replacements in some cases aren't showcased enough, but you're one of those rare cases where the replacement ultimately ended up garnering most of the attention. But as far as like your story went, I feel like they sprinkled in pieces here and there of
yeah.
like your backstory, but we never really got like the whole scope of like who Nia is aside from like the hurricane aspects. So like, just walk me through kind of the basis. This is Nia pre-real world. This is what led me to
Yeah.
audition, and then that process.
Okay, so I was 23. A year prior, I had just graduated from college. I went to Howard University. I was fortunate enough to have a full ride volleyball scholarship. Majored in journalism. When I got out of college, I'd had a couple little offers to do journalism jobs. I turned it down. And like I was telling you off camera, I didn't want to like be serious about life. I'm like, listen, we've been in school since we were 5. We're finally done. I want to just be a cocktail waitress and have fun and party and like just not take life seriously. That I was very intentional about that. Whereas all my other friends were like, oh, I'm going to law school, I'm going to med school, this and that. I'm like, oh, no, I'm about to move home, like go back and like seriously just work in a bar and party and like have fun. And so that's what I did. But I remember jokingly saying, like before I even left campus, when my friends were talking about all the cool, like, you know, very serious, mature things they were going to do with their life. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go in the real world and be a cocktail waitress. And they're like, okay, that's, who says that? But I was joking. I didn't think I would actually have an opportunity to apply or to interview to be on the show. But that's the way it worked out. And so a year and a half later is when I think casting was happening for Real World Portland. And I went in, did an audition. I sent in some tapes. And I just was kind of like lightheartedly going after this. I wasn't like hell bent. I never was like I needed to pursue fame, popularity, nothing like that. Like that just wasn't my thing. It was more so if this would be fun, something to do, so I don't have to like get serious about life and get a real job. And so I was like, okay, this would be fun. Like 3 months to go do something cool and whatnot. And you know, at that time, I was just a waitress. I was a man eater, and you know. Doing my thing and partying and enjoying my life, and the opportunity came about, and I mean it was like the perfect storm. Like I told you, when they called me and said I didn't get casted, um, I didn't even hear them. I didn't feel the rejection or like this isn't happening for you. Something in my soul was like, it is happening for you, they just don't know it yet. And so I remember I was in an argument with my boyfriend at the time, and they're like, okay, we decided to go in a different direction, but thank you for your time and your whatever. And I'm like, okay. I was like, thank you so much. Hung up the phone. Then me and him start going at it again. But I knew in my soul it was like, you are going, but I don't know how this is going to work out. I didn't even think about it. After that I never thought about it again. And then I don't know if it was 3 weeks or 6 weeks later, the executive producer calls me and he's like, are you still interested? And I'm like, yeah, I've been ready. Like, let's go. But I just kind of knew it was one of those things, like, even though they didn't decide on me, it ended up happening regardless. And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, when you make up your mind about something, there's power in the tongue, the spirit of expectation, knowing that like anything you desire, you can have. It's just sometimes timing is better, and just release it, desire it, release it, let it go. And it came right back to me. So, and I think the timing was great because, I mean, I don't know if it was great, but it was like, I don't know if everything would have been hunky dory if I would have been an original. I think shit was bound to pop off. You know what I mean? Like with that group and where we were and the type of people we were and all this
Might have
stuff.
popped off a little earlier in the season, I would
Yeah,
say. Maybe a little earlier. It was you showed up on episode 6 of I believe a 12 or 11 episode season.
Yeah.
And we got provided a whole season of content through about only the latter half of the season. Like,
Yeah.
it was insane. You came in kind of like a bat out of hell. It was
No,
like
no,
you had your
exactly.
episode. It was a daily episode banter between you and Jordan. He would always call you like a gold digger or something.
It was, oh, we laugh about it now because it was so, like, that was just so funny. Like, even the gold digger thing, I was like, I remember in that night where we got in that fight with the lamp, I was like, wait, because like the men that I've dated have had money that makes me a gold digger, like silver spoon, white boy from Oklahoma, and I'm like, oh, you've never had to work hard for anything. We were just like,
I think you
so
first
dumb.
came in the house. You first came in the house, and I think people like off the bat, the usual real world things like, "Oh, are you single? Are you single? You got a boyfriend?" I think you came in the house, and everyone's like, "Do you have a boyfriend?" You're like, "Yeah, I have three." And
Yeah.
then and then everybody's sitting at the table later that night. They're like, "Nia's so nice," and then Marlon's like, "She said she had three boyfriends, though. That's the one thing that kind of."
Oh no, I was an agent of chaos back then. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was just, but I meant well. Like at the end of the day, I really meant well, Mike. Like I know this may sound shocking. That was the first fist fight I've ever been in my life. In my life, I've never even had anyone swing on me,
Wow.
or put spit on me, or throw a drink on my head. I've never been in that situation. I've always just been taught to respect people and to create boundaries. And if you are in a compromising situation, get out of there or call authorities. And then if you are in a situation like that, then better know how to throw
Throw Cheerios or
yeah,
throw a drink or something.
a hair dryer, whatever.
Yeah. Do what you gotta do.
I mean, I genuinely am not a violent person. I don't even watch like violent television, like, but I'm intensely passionate about protecting myself and people that I care about. Like Jessica, half of those arguments started with me just trying to protect her because she couldn't use her words as swiftly and as didn't
Yeah.
have the tenacity that I did. And so I'm like, no, you guys aren't gonna like pick on her. That's my girl. I'm gonna have her back. But it also caused me to get into way bigger battles of the ego than I shouldn't have even been a part of because it was all so stupid. I mean, everything we were arguing about or fighting about was dumb. I mean, the fist fight started over dog poop.
Was that really the catalyst of the fight, or was it
Yes, I swear.
that's it? There was no underlying,
Let me say this. I am only speaking from Nia Moore's experience. There is absolutely no editing, no production telling you what to do on the real world. And the only time we saw production was when like something serious in the world happened because we were cut off from the outside world, or if like something happened in your family. They
Hmm.
don't come in and say, okay, this is what you're going to do today, and this is what you're going to be mad about today. No, it's none of that. You are who you are. So when people say, oh, I was edited, I got a bad edit, I'm like, no, because I know I said and did those really disgusting things or those really funny things or this and that. And that's really what happened. There is no like sewing it together to make it a TV show. That's why The Real World has been on for 30 years because they have brilliant people who cast, like, and they're psychologists. They know who's going to fall in love. They know who's going to fight. They know who's going to have this Achilles heel. They know who's going to, like, in this point of self discovery. You know what I mean? They know who the party
Yeah.
girl is. So they pick it perfectly, like almost down to a science. So there is no orchestrating behind the scenes. Like everything that I've said and did, good, bad, and ugly, that happened in that order. And anybody who's saying otherwise is just lying. Like, not the.
How long did that fight go on for? That because I mean, you could fact check me
Oh,
here, people, but that's got to be like I would say the last time we saw that big of a fight. I would say as far as like the challenge real world
yeah.
sphere goes. I think nowadays since 2013 they've done a pretty decent job of like, all right, we're drawing the line here.
Yeah.
Like no more of this shit.
Like after that, they had meetings at an executive level. Like, why did this happen? And this is why it happened. Number one, it was 8 a.m. We were sober. I was about to go out to like meet a friend at breakfast, and the stuff had spilled over and boiled over, from the night before. So I was kind of picking at them, making little noises at the dog, just being immature and stupid. But at the same time, I never thought what was about to transpire was ever going to happen in a million years because, like I said, I've never been in a physical fight or even been provoked to even get violent. And so they didn't have security guards back then because nobody was fighting on the real world like that. You know, it's 8 a.m. Half of production's not even there yet. And so I think it was just one of those perfect storms of, it was so chaotic, it was so crazy. Nobody could break it up because nobody was there. There was no security guards. Like, we didn't even have security guards at that point until after that fight. Then they brought a couple people in to make sure that nothing else happened again. But yeah, it was long. It felt like an hour between the situation with me and Johnny in the bathroom. And then it might have been like 5 minutes where they tried to scramble and get us all mic'd up because now I've hit him and the boys come and break it up. Now Averey is kind of becoming abreast of what's going on. It might have been like 5 minutes in between that. Then me and her start going at it. And then, you know, she's putting in some work. Like she was swinging.
Nah, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, you can't fucking punch me in the face on TV. So now it's really war. Like now we're going all day, every day. Like I'm making sure that like this ends where you're running out of here. And so at that point, Jordan was doing a really great job of keeping me away from them. But I'm like, oh, I need to get Averey. I got to get her back. You know, It might have been 45 minutes after. I mean, we were exhausted. Like physically, I mean, if anyone who's been in a fight, it's like, even if you're fighting for, you know, a minute and 30 seconds, you're exerting so much energy and this and that. And I'm playing defense, trying to get to them and whatever. I was exhausted. But I was so, like, I was in such a fit of rage because I felt like I didn't hit her first. I didn't do those things to Johnny. Johnny did things to me physically, not pushing me or punching me, but doing, you know, things that provoked me to be physical. So I couldn't even calm myself down. Marlon tried. I'm like, stop, leave me alone. This is war. This is what I think is what is supposed to happen. And I wish I would have just had the ability to turn that off, but I had never had that switch turned on in my life. And so, you know, maybe, I think it might have been 45 minutes, an hour goes by. And I told Johnny and Averey, I'm like, I'm going to swing on you guys again because you can't live here now. Now that, I mean, we lived in the same room. Can you imagine like me trying to go to sleep and I just got in a fist fight and like, I mean,
the person you fought in your room. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was war. And that's when that whole scene in the bathroom happened. And it was just, I mean, it was ugly. It was like I hit her in the back of the head. It was just awful. And I'm so immensely regretful of that. Like, but I can't take it back. Like, that's just where I was. And I was willing to fight dirty and whatnot. And then ultimately they ended up moving out. We did like a houseboat and other people in the house said that they had my back, or they just didn't think that I should be kicked out. They left. And yeah. But, you know, we're all friends now. And like, I love them and I wish them well. And like, I mean, I literally like me and Averey talk a lot. I can't wait to go to Arizona to like see her for real. And
she just won something recently too. Yeah.
Of course she did. So hot. Always been like the pinnacle, like Hooters girl. So she just won again.
Yeah.
And then Johnny, you know, he just became a cop. He just had a baby.
He's dad. Yeah.
Anastasia has a baby. Mm-hmm. Jessica's like on her way to having a baby. She's married. Marlon, I haven't talked to him in a while, but like, you know, I know he's doing well too. And like, it's just crazy that we all have formed this really genuine sense of love and respect for each other outside of the show, considering what happened, you know?
You have to think, and I'm sure, like, I'm not naive to the fact that Portland's not necessarily on the top of the pecking order in terms of the homecoming seasons. You know, they're one of the last seasons. So, you know, I'd say maybe 3 to 5 from now, if they're still doing these things, would probably be a more appropriate time to revisit this thing. But I feel like, although you guys are on a better terms now, like there's still like some of that story that I feel like should be kind of relived in a homecoming setting, you know, like on a grand scale. Like we guys obviously, you know, you're cool on the behind the scenes basis, but like the audience has to see you guys cool, if that makes sense, you know, like there's still more to this story that needs to be resolved in front of people, I feel like.
100%, Mike. Like I was thinking, like I had talked to someone in production and I said, listen, I know that you guys are doing these like blasts from the past for the homecoming, but I think you should heavily consider doing ours because of, I mean, it's sometimes like the blasts of the past are cool, but also people are like seeing me and us on Exes 2 and, you know, on All Stars 3. And they're like, okay, wait a minute. What is this new dynamic between Nia and Jordan or Nia and Averey and this and that, or they see us on social media and they're so confused. They think it's all fake because they're like, how can you have gone from this to that? And I think that they should just, like, after this New Orleans thing, consider doing the real world Portland, because we're all in such really interesting, dynamic places in our lives. I mean, all of us, like Anastasia's story, Jessica's story, like, Averey and Johnny have things that, they probably could talk about and just heal and take ownership and, like, at least wish each other well. Like, they're never going to be friends, probably. Me and Jordan have, there's layers to our relationship. I mean, we still argue. We got in fights on the All-Stars 3, but, like, it's still rooted in deep love and respect for each other and an unwillingness to go back to that pits of hell where we started. And I think they should just consider doing a Portland one, even finding out where Marlon is. And, he had his journey with, coming to be as a man and, like, his lifestyle and this and that. I think that those are just, like, stories that have chapters that are still there and that have gone on and that people would be emotionally invested in. And even I would like to talk about the things I said and did and how I didn't realize the weight and the consequences of those things in the moment. But I would love to just really stare at those things because I'm not that person anymore. So I'm brave enough to do it and to not feel like defensive,
Yeah.
I think, Anastasia and Jessica, like, they had their whole beef on the show that was rooted in, like, absolutely nothing. Don't even bark. Don't. Quiet. And now they're, like, talking about motherhood and, Jess's struggle to conceive, and, Anastasia's had a baby, and, she's had a lot of mental health issues and
Yeah.
she's gotten to the other side. I just think there's so many random stories, not just the Hurricane Nia stuff. There's so many other journeys. Johnny, like, everybody has evolved and had, stuff going on outside of the show that I think the fans would love. And even if you didn't watch Real World Portland, if you saw that homecoming, you'd be like, let me go back and see where this shit is coming from,
Yeah. No, it definitely seemed like the edit did take kind of like that turn to kind of just make it centered around the fighting, whereas, like, there were scenes where, like, you and Anastasia and Marlon were in his studio listening to a song that, like, his dad wrote for him. And like you said, like, you and Jordan playfully fighting. Like, this is not stuff we're necessarily privy to as the viewer, but this is just where the story was going. But if the story in the future chooses to kind of show us growth, then I think that that's maybe something that would be in the interest of the viewers, in my opinion.
I hope we don't have to wait 5 years, because if they call me 5 years from now, I'm
Oh, man. Yeah.
But I mean, I think they should just kind of revisit.
But wait, let me ask you though, if like the homecoming does happen, will you agree to work at Schmietz's again, or is that off the table?
Oh, that would be so well. Woman who the people that work there that I said those really awful things that I said to don't work there anymore, but I would like to go back there and actually do the job with integrity and love, and not because of what I think I should be getting paid. Because what I do now is, like, I'm in the service industry. I've always been in the service industry. I've always been nanny, cook, waitress, concierge, bartender. Like, I've always been the help. And the fact that I said things like, oh, well, you guys are going to be here forever, as if, like, I'm better than them. And I was unemployed. Like, that's how delusional I was back then. I would love to go back there and, work at Smita and, not get fired on day one.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that Averey and you fight a little bit, the following season, or the first season that introduced us to the Portland crew on the challenge, was actually the Rivals 2 season. And I think when the casts were popping up, everybody, like, of course, Jess and Anastasia had, like, their thing, like, of course, with their beef. But I think everybody looked at the cast and were like, you mean to tell us, like, we're not falling back up and having Averey and Nia, like, paired up on this thing?
Oh, you mean like us being partnered?
Yeah.
I thought that was odd too. I was like, why are we not partnered?
Was that on your end? Like, were you not ready to do it at that time?
Oh, so they had called me, but I think maybe either she wasn't available, or here's the thing: what I could consider, maybe it was still, our war was still fresh, that she was like, I'm not doing it if I'm partnered with her. Or maybe like if they were going to partner me with Jordan, they're like, he's like, I don't want to be partnered with her. Cause we hadn't mended our relationship at that point.
Hmm.
So I'm not really too sure why I didn't initially get casted on Rivals, but I presume it's because whoever they were going to partner me with was like, no, I want nothing to do with her. And that's fair.
Well, you two would have killed that one. The
Yeah, I know.
fact that
That would have, even if we did a battle of the season, I feel like we would have done so much.
oh, a team Portland. That I think we got to see that. If they do a battle of the seasons on All Stars, oh Lord, it's a
Because
wrap.
Theresa wants to come back. I mean, even though she's trying to have a baby, she's like, I got a call for All Stars 3, and I would have totally come on if I would have known you were going to be there. And I'm like, crap. I mean, yeah, that would have been amazing to do that with her.
So your first appearance on the challenge was obviously free agents. A little bit more like a reserved Nia, but I do want to point out that you and Cara Maria had what I would chalk up to be probably the most brutal in terms of physically elimination I think I've ever seen on a challenge from a lady elimination standpoint. I've heard this went on for an hour and a half, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So I heard something about a separated shoulder and nerve damage from this due to like the harness that you were plugged into. Can you walk me through this thing?
Okay, so this is essentially tug of war, but because we're having to like zigzag through these pillars, the ropes are becoming increasingly tighter as she and I are both running in opposite directions. What production didn't realize is the harnesses they gave us didn't have padding like through here, and like your nerves are right here and through your crotch area. So there was no like padding to, if in the event you're sitting in that position, we're both pulling opposite directions, it's tightening in all the wrong areas. It can become problematic. So she and I are in a deadlock for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. It wasn't until I would say maybe like 45 minutes to an hour in, I realized when I was trying to go to make another move that my arm was not moving. Like, I mean, I kind of just lifted it off the sand, and the bone and the muscle and everything was kind of mushy. And I didn't feel it because there was no pain. It was more so of why,
Adrenaline?
why is my body like leaning this way? Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I was willing to like, hey, I will stay here all night. Like that's the type of like, killer instinct I have in a moment like that. And I knew that she was such a beast, like Cara was such a beast. And I'm like, if I could beat her, my first challenge, like I don't even know what I'm doing here, but if I could do this, this would be so badass. I know nobody's cheering for me, but like I'm up for the challenge. And at about an hour in, I kind of start looking at TJ. I mean, I'm grimacing at this point because now it is painful. And I'm like, what do I do? Do I just die trying? Like, do I just stay in this position, even though I know this is happening? Also, production doesn't know that this is happening to me. And so I just stayed there until I think it was like an hour and a half in. I said, TJ, I was like whispering to him of like sand in my face. And I'm just like, I don't like, something is happening, like, whatever. And he's like, just quit. And I hated the way he said, just quit. But I was like, no, I'm not quitting, but I don't want to harm my body long term. And I don't know what this is. So I just obviously, decided I was done. The scary thing is when I was doing my OTF, my outtake interviews, and then once I got to the hotel, and especially when I was on the flight home, my arm had not gotten any feeling. I could not lift it at all. And I was like, oh my God, this is probably nerve damage. So I go to the doctor when I get home. I mean, my mom had to like physically hold my arm up so I could wash my armpit. I was hysterical. And I'm like, what if my arm is like this forever? So I go to the neurology specialist and they do scans and whatnot. And they said that the nerves under my armpit were so pinched that like if you had waited any longer, they're like, I don't know how long you were doing this or why you're doing this, but it could have been permanent. And so till this day, this arm, I mean, I'm a dominant left hand girl anyway, but this arm weightlifting has never been the same. And that was 7 years or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was scary because I just didn't know, people get hurt on these shows all the time and have lifelong, injuries.
Ramifications. Yeah.
And people don't realize that. And so I'm just thankful that number one, it came back. I'm fine. I'm healthy. But it was 2 weeks of, I could not lift my arm. I mean, and it felt like I had a brief understanding of what it would be like if you had an amputee or something, because my body was just kind of leaning, leaning one way, and I had to drive like every little thing that you would do with two hands. And I remember thinking, like, even though Jordan's a badass, and I know he's only missing fingers and, like, whatever, but he still is, is disfigured and not disabled. But I was like, man, like to have that type of limitation was humbling. It was scary. But yeah, I mean, I was glad that I at least put up a fight, for an hour and a half. But would I have done that again that way? No. And after that, they did that tug of war thing again, and they put the padding.
They put a rope in the middle too, so if somebody gets there, they have an easier. So you guys were the guinea pig, by the way. There was no guy elimination that night, if you remember correctly, because I think Johnny from your season was supposed to go in, but since Frank had to leave earlier that episode because he got sick, they canceled the guy elimination. So it was only you two girls going.
Guys, it would have been worse. Like, because I mean, to your point, it was like they realized, like, okay, they create these games and they go out of their way to test them before we do it, but I mean, there's always room for error, so it's like you would rather you find the error before you're trying to put a bunch of kids in a situation that could potentially be dangerous or hurt them in a sense. But that was one of those things where, like, okay, yeah, we don't want this to happen again. And I'm happy that they corrected it, because I wouldn't want anyone else to have gone through that, and not been able to compete if they even won. I mean, Cara she even was like, affected by the way the stuff with the harness was grabbing her. She just didn't. She was luckier where she didn't put it, I guess, as much weight under her pit.
But so was that a close call for you then, going on to Exes too, coming off of that type of experience with the injury, or was it like not even a thought in your mind, like, all right, now I'm going to come back and give another go at this?
Yeah, it wasn't like a thought of, because that was my first challenge where I got hurt and Cara beat me. I was more motivated because I was also like young and in shape, and I'm an athlete, so it's like losing that's part of competing. Like, you're gonna lose, but I was motivated to like come back and be fierce, and I trained before I went on that second season.
What a season that was. Like,
oh my God, it was so fun.
You had like everything from like the drama, the like plotting, the gameplay, all the challenges were cool. You even had like the pulling of the heartstrings moment when, because obviously we all know that was Diem and Knight's last season too, and that was so sad. I know a lot of people, once that season ended, like it took them a while to kind of come back to watching because of that, myself included. I actually did take a break after that. Maybe that's why I remember so much that season. Yeah, because I remember.
That was. So, little backstory. When I was showing up for Exes 2, we were in the airport. I had only done the previous one, Free Agents. And I just presumed that most people didn't like me or weren't willing to get to know me because of how I behaved on the real world. Rightfully so. And so, or maybe they just were intimidated or whatever. And so Diem, we're in the airport, and she's like, do you want a room with me? And I'm like, why would you want a room? Like, you, Diem Brown, want a room with me? Like, she just didn't judge me. She based an opinion on me, how she met me. And she gave me a fair shot, Like, I don't care what anybody else has said about you. Like, I want to get to know you. I'm Diem. Nice to meet you. Do you want a room with me when we get to the house? And she and I were roommates. It was me, her, Averey, I think Theresa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember being in such awe of her. And I didn't really watch the show other than when I was on it. So I didn't know, I knew that she had, battled cancer, but not like the details. I didn't know how that really just ravaged most of her 20s and how she had to like fight her way through it. And I mean, ultimately it was like, she is just one of the most beautiful, humble, non-victim type personalities. I mean, like, she didn't deserve any of the bad hands that she had in life, but she walked with dignity and grace. And I remember like the conversations we would have in the house, and she was, she was older than me, and she was like ready. She just wanted time. I remember her saying, she just like, I just want time. I want to experience motherhood. And, she wanted to be married. And Her and CT had this beautiful love story that was
Yeah.
always evolving and whatnot, and she just was to me a source of wisdom, and she was like a big sister. And at the time, none of us knew what was happening to her internally, and I don't know if she did, but I witnessed that. I remember the day before she left, and I walked in the room. We were all like out drinking at the pool. Came in, and she was just like grimacing in the bed, like grabbing the pillow in so much pain. And we thought, everyone thought it was like something with the food in the house because the food was not really good at the catering.
Mm-hmm.
We thought maybe it was affecting her digestively, or she was just having cramping and this and that. But ultimately, we learned that it was the cancer, and it come back like way more aggressive. And I'm not gonna cry.
It's okay to cry.
Okay. But yeah, it was crazy to like witness that, and then that whole scene where CT carries her out and whatnot, and I think like a month after we finished filming, she was gone. And I remember even her last tweet, she had so much optimism and strength and like, just being Diem. And it was so unfair. I struggled with it a lot because I felt like here I was like 23 or 24, however old I was, like I was smoking and drinking and eating shit and like didn't take care of my body. And this is a girl who respected her body like a temple and didn't matter. Like there was nothing she could do um, to save herself. And it just felt like it was so unfair. Considering the life that I was living was more like reckless and like whatever, and I carried a lot of guilt and shame with that. And eventually, I went to therapy about it, and Diem has, sent me signs and, just, giving me a kiss on the shoulder and made me understand that I shouldn't condemn myself and this and that and whatnot, but also that she's at peace. And unfortunately, we don't know when our time is, none of us do. But I'm just thankful for how much love she exuded, how much beauty and optimism and joy. And despite her circumstances, she found a reason to dance and shine and be a light in this world. And to me, she lived life abundantly and to the max because of that, regardless of the fact that she left at 34 or 33,
Mm-hmm.
Same with Knight. Like, Knight to me, like, I loved him. Like, he was
Oh,
such a rock
there
star.
was a prank that didn't you guys pull this prank on him? Not to cut you off, but there was this prank I think the night before he left with the
Yeah.
water balloons. I think it was when you
Yeah.
dropped them from the top of the house on him or
Yeah.
something like that.
Knight was just a cool dude. Like, I totally get how him and, Jimmy fell in love. Like, flaws and all, like, their relationship, like, I mean, they loved each other dearly. And he was just, like, that was like my guy, So that was another one that just rocked me. And, the whole,
That was just tough. There
yeah,
was a week. It was a
almost
week and a half apart.
was crazy. But both of them, I say their names often, and I, asked them to come and, just be around me sometimes, especially when I was on the show. I wrote DM on my sneakers, and I would pray and I would talk to her, and she visited the house, spiritually multiple times. People felt it. So it was really cool to know that she was there and she sent us messages and whatnot. But,
Back in Panama too, no less.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's how I knew it was real. And like Nehemiah is like on a spiritual realm that I aspire to be. And she came to him and gave him like full blown messages to like share with us, like, hey, I'm so happy to see you guys. I wish I could be there with you. Da 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 da. And it's like, once you think, oh, maybe that was a dream. No, you could feel it. Like you just knew him was present. And same with Night. And to be back there in that same country that we all left off on, and then unfortunately that was the last time they were around. It was a beautiful like full circle moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's unfortunate that they left so soon, but you could only be glad that they were in your life to begin with.
Yes. Yes.
You'd rather experience once than never experience it at all.
Exactly.
I do want to kind of talk about, since we brought up about the rooming situation, we had the story of the season was kind of team upstairs versus everybody. How did the you, Theresa, and Averey alliance versus like everybody, like why were you guys so like, I guess, exiled, I guess, from like the major alliance, I guess, in the house?
All right, you're talking about exes. I thought you were talking about the upstairs, downstairs bullshit on All Stars 3.
No, I don't know nothing about that.
Oh God, I
Can't
can't.
talk about that anyway. So
I'm like, really, guys? Come on, we're too old for this. Okay, so one thing I was told, even just reminded of when I did All Stars 3, like people were like, it's very important where you room. Whereas me, I'm simple. I'm like, just give me a bed, make it close to like the kitchen. Like that's really it for me, you know? But when you think about the political aspect of the game, you do want to be, because those are the people you're going to spend the most time with. Those are the people you're more than likely like going to form alliances with. So I just never did that. Like in my situation, it was like wherever I can fit in, I'm happy. And Diem, swoops me in. And me and Averey were obviously tight, and me and Theresa liked each other, so it just worked out perfectly. I don't know. It wasn't like an upstairs downstairs thing because I think the house in Panama was only one level. I don't remember it being. Wait, was there stairs?
I think there had to have been stairs.
Oh, there were. Yeah, okay, there were stairs. I can't remember the layout of that house, but yes. Yeah, so we all back then you would just all get off the bus and run in, and I think that it just naturally happened where we all chose the same room. I mean, me and Averey definitely knew we were going to room together, and then DM had told me like, "Hey, room with me." So of course it was like me, her, and Averey, and then we loved Theresa, so Theresa came in there. Who else was in there? Do you remember?
I think it might have been just you four.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember if there was anyone else. But yeah, it was just one of those things where I don't think any of us were thinking game wise. Maybe I can't speak for anyone else, but we just all vibed, and it wasn't that we weren't vibing with the other girls. Like I liked Nany, I liked Jenna, I liked Brittany, I liked obviously Jessica. I mean, that was my girl. Like I don't even know why she wasn't in our room. I think it was just more so we just ran around.
Numbers, yeah. Well, it kind of did try to make it seem like it was like you three against Nany for the most part.
No, I really liked Nany, and I love her. Like, I can't wait to see her at Cam and Leroy's baby shower this weekend.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her since then. So, even though, like, I said some really horrible things to her and we had our little whatever, we would always just, like, the next day, like, hey, my bad, girl. You know what I mean? Like, it just was whatever. It's not that deep. Like, she's one of those people I think she can let stuff roll off her shoulder the same way I can. But yeah, like Nany was fierce, and me and her had a really good time in the house up until I started getting way too emotional with the
Nomination.
Yeah, the nomination. I took that shit so personal.
That was wild. That was crazy.
It was, but I just didn't understand because I felt like Leroy, people love him so much. And he's so funny. He's such a ball of light. I mean, even production just like adores him. And I'm like, why do we keep getting thrown in these eliminations when you have like a Jenna and Jay, or like you guys said it, make the rookies earn their way. But like we keep going back in there, and you're a vet, and you're literally the most loved guy in this house. Why are people keep trying to get rid of us? Like it was just weird to me. And so I think I had created like this whole conspiracy theory in my head. Where there was no telling me otherwise. I'm like, Johnny Bananas is not your friend. Like, there's no way, like, or me and Jordan, obviously I like snapped, but I just didn't understand the game. I took it so personally where I should have just been playing it like an athlete, and made them like go in there and win.
My favorite part about that whole sequence is when they cut to what's called the confessionals, which to cast members, I'm sure they refer to as interviews, like where, you guys sit in those chairs and the producers ask you questions. That's what we see. Like it shows your name title on the screen. That's what I'm referring to. Johnny in his was like, Nia, I'm surprised doesn't turn around and start yelling at TJ about something. That's my favorite part. Because nobody was off limits that night.
Yeah.
Nobody. Nobody was exempt.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I was very immature, and I just didn't understand how to play the game. And I wish I would have had like a sensei like I have now, like in Wes. Like Wes, I mean, I've soaked up so much game from him, just even how he deals with stuff under pressure, or when there's a target on his back, like he's able to maneuver it and be persuasive and use the art of power, and you know what I mean, in a way where he doesn't have to be big and loud and beat on his chest and scare people. It's like, no, like you can, in a very gentle way, get what you want, or at least take a shot at it, versus like just naturally trying to frighten someone to not call your name, because it doesn't really work in the end, and then you end up saying things that, are not flattering in the end, and then you vilify yourself. So
yeah, he does a good job of differentiating the game from reality.
Brilliant.
In that aspect.
Brilliant. If I get half of what's politically,
chef's kiss.
And then if I also actually train hard and stop eating food everywhere I go.
I mean, you're a chef though. I feel like that's natural.
I know, but
it's like working at Applebee's and then kind of seeing what's next to you, and then it's a natural instinct. Not saying that I do, but
There's balance. You gotta work. You can't just eat tacos and go to sleep.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit more about what you have going on with the chef thing going on for yourself? Is there any? Do you sell anything or?
No, not at the moment. I would like to publish an e-cookbook at some point. Maybe I also wanted to do some type of visual aspect of my travels and intertwine it with certain recipes, places that I go, stuff that I fall in love with food wise, and share that with people and teach them how to make it from home. I want to do that. I cook on the airplanes occasionally, but for the most part, I haven't been doing cooking full time the way I was prior to becoming a corporate flight attendant. I love my job. It intertwines everything, hospitality, culinary, travel, all that stuff. So that's just pretty much what I'm doing full time. But I would like to do more creative projects in my downtime where I can, show people what my life is like on the road, and, do recipes from home. And I have my food blog, Beauty and the Feast, that I don't update that often. But there's some good stuff on there, though. I mean, the recipes that are on there are tried and true.
Yeah, nice layout. I saw it. Well, you got no perfect time then, I feel like, now resurfacing to start something like you just mentioned. I feel like with now there's going to be added eyeballs on you, whether you like it or not, due to this show. The pressure, I know. It's going to be tough. But I feel like in a double-edged sword type of way, you're going to have more eyeballs on you now to where if you did want to parlay what you have going on, you could probably do that.
Mike, I'm going to give it my best shot. Like I said, I'm kind of ADHD. I'm full blown. Yeah, I just want to, when I'm off the road, I want to lay in bed with my dogs and eat Thai food and watch Netflix and not do anything. But at the same time, I feel like food and my personality and travel and all that stuff, it's really a big part of me, and people do enjoy it. So why not give it to them? I just want to do it at a gingerly pace. I don't want to do it for money, you know what I mean? I post all these things or be so interactive on social media. That's not me. I have to just do it out of love or be inspired. Otherwise, I'd just rather not do it at all. So hopefully, I just create a rhythm this summer and I'm figuring it out. I've been creating a blueprint and whatnot, but I can't make any promises. All I can promise is that I'll post a recipe on my food blog once every 3 months. I had to pick it up. I'll try to step it up and, do some more fun interactive things, because it does bring me joy, and I like people, like my recipes and enjoy, what I do outside of the show and whatnot.
Well, what is your favorite thing to make? Putting you on the spot here.
Ooh, honestly, it could be anything. I like to make things that I've never made before. I did a braised duck. That I had this really delicious braised duck at a French restaurant overseas. I kind of tried to emulate that. And I remember I bought the chef a beer, and I was I need to try getting this recipe. And that's pretty much what I do to get really cool recipes that I don't know how to make things on my own. And I just learn and practice in my own kitchen. I love anything Latin, grilled seafoods. I love to grill out. I love pastas. Desserts, churros, pineapple upside down cake, fried Oreos. I always make those in the house.
Fried Oreos? Now that's a sweet tooth of mine.
Yeah, that's a carnival nostalgic thing. And
yeah, it's something you get at the boardwalk or something like that.
Mike, you can make this today. All it is pancake batter. Just get a box that's just add water.
Mm-hmm.
Full stuffed Oreos, that's the key, because you want the most cream filling once you fry it. You just make the batter, make it kind of thick. You get vegetable oil or whatever, deep fry it in there for like 2 minutes. Put powdered sugar on top. That is important. With maybe if you want to get
Obviously.
some like warm Nutella. Oh my god!
I'm good.
I made it in the challenge house and every like for production and for like the cast, and they're like,
Wow.
"Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yes, make this at home for your kids. It's so easy." And
Oh,
it's a
good thing we have this on recording, because now when I'm trying to make this, I just like peek over,
no, I
listen to
will
Nia as I'm
full
cooking
blown
this thing.
like it's you cannot mess up fried Oreos. It's so easy. It's 3 ingredients.
Oh, good. So that way, if this was ever a challenge, you'd be set up very nice then.
Yeah.
A cooking challenge or something.
You should have seen me like on like voting days. I'm walking around the house like with fried Oreos. Like, anyone want
Hey, don't want to vote me in?
service?
Oh man.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I had such a fun time chatting with you today. I'm so glad that you took your so generous time out to speak with me. I know that's been a while since I'm sure you've done one of these, and I know this whole process is probably a whirlwind for you. But I'm glad that you took the time out. Today's actually my anniversary date of the show, so
no way. Oh, that's
yeah, you were one of my most requested, so that's why I wanted to specifically do it on this day.
awesome. Well, it's an honor. And you have made me feel so at ease because I told you how really awkward I am, like in
It's
this
fun.
whole like world again because I'm like so rusty now. But I've heard wonderful things about you. And Kendall was like, Nia, you got to do his show. Like he's amazing. And I'm so happy. And I will absolutely make sure my other castmates get on here. They all want to do it, by the way. We have this group chat. So if there's anyone that you reach out to that maybe you just don't get a response from, let me know, text me, and then I'll make sure I like jump on them and say, hey, set it up. It was amazing. You
Even
got it.
that Jordan guy,
Yeah, Jordan will absolutely do this. I promise you.
I feel like him and I would be pretty get along pretty well.
Pardon?
I think him and I would get along pretty well.
Very much so.
Well, I'll keep supporting you from afar, and those who have checked this out, you can check Nia out again on, correct me if I'm wrong, May 11th on Paramount Plus, and we'll be seeing her on an upcoming All-Star show. Nia, thank you again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you back on our screens.
Likewise. I mean, well, thank you, but yeah, I'm really excited to be back on the screens as well. And thank you for just, giving me the opportunity to be here.
For sure. All right, have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. You do the same.
See you.